Alright, now that you have perceived the nature of true, false, not given questions, let me bring you to the 7 greatest mistakes that cause your failure to score highly in this part of the reading test. You ready? The first one is being out of touch with paraphrases. Let's figure it out via the following example. Question. Aristotle's view has been largely supported by contemporary thinking on humor. Passage. Most modern humor theorists have settled on Aristotle's belief. Now pause the video and do the true, false, not given challenge. Okay, paraphrasing information in the text is one of the things IELTS test makers frequently do when creating questions, since this is one perfect medium for assessing candidates' reading fluency. So what's all that paraphrase stuff in this example? Let's bring it to light.
Here we go!
Firstly, Aristotle's view is similar to Aristotle's belief. Secondly, largely means most. Thirdly, supported is the equivalent of settled on. And finally, contemporary thinking on humor is a reworded version of modern humor theorists. So now I compare the statement and the passage in terms of meaning, and I see that they communicate the same idea to readers. The former is simply the rephrased version of the latter. So my answer is true. If you had the same answer, then congratulations! To sum up, if you want to develop the ability to spot paraphrases, I'd advise you to note down instances of paraphrasing that you find when doing true, false, not given questions for future reference. Okay, so let's move on to the second problem, failing to read between the lines. Question. Most visitors feel it is unlikely that they will return to New Zealand after their visit. Passage. Because of the long-haul flight, most visitors stay for longer, average 20 days, and want to see as much of New Zealand as possible on what they deem a once-in-a-lifetime visit. Okay, pause and get it done in 30 seconds. Alright, if you put not given, then I'm afraid you're mistaken. If you read the passage carefully enough, you'll see that there's one detail implying that most visitors are unlikely to return to New Zealand after their visit, and that is what they deem a once-in-a-lifetime visit. So the statement is true, and the lesson to be learned is that there are times when information in the statement is not explicitly stated in the text, rather it's implied. You have to completely and accurately understand the text and use your logic in order to infer a deeper meaning from it. Otherwise, you could end up making wrong decisions. Okay, 3. Overlooking small details. Question. According to research, 26% of visitor satisfaction comes from accommodation. Passage. This is important, as research shows that activities are the key driver of visitor satisfaction, contributing 74% to visitor satisfaction, while transport and accommodation account for the remaining 26%. In this instance, one may say true because he sees the part accommodation account for the remaining 26% and quickly associates this with 26% of visitor satisfaction comes from accommodation. The thing is, he's too rash to notice that before accommodation there's transport, and it is these two factors that make up 26% of visitor satisfaction according to the passage. So the real answer is false. In short, be careful with small details. You are very likely to miss them, and this could be your big regret later. One handy tip is to ask yourself before moving on to the next question: did I overlook any word or phrase in the passage as well as in the question during assessment? You got it? 4. Falling prey to qualifiers. Question. You must have the correct money to buy a ticket from the bus driver. Passage. Buy your bus ticket from the bus driver with the correct money if possible. It would be a bit rash of you to put true, safe in the knowledge that both sentences have the same meaning. You might not have understood the phrase if possible correctly. When we say if possible, we mean something is recommended and you're not obligated to do it. In this example, if possible means you're recommended to pay the bus driver with the correct money. But if you can't, it's fine. This implication really contradicts the word must in the statement, therefore rendering it false. So remember, qualifiers such as all, most, every, nearly, no, always, never, only, mainly, must can completely change the original meaning of a sentence when you add them in. So beware when you spot them in a statement and or the passage. Here is another example. Question: all glaciers are located near the north and south poles of the earth. Passage: near the north and south poles lie the majority of the earth's glaciers. Now tell me, is the statement true, false, or not given? False, right? That's it. Yeah! Both the statement and the passage tell us where glaciers are. But while the former says all, the latter says the majority of. So considering this difference, the answer must be false. Now it's time to reveal the fifth mistake, confusing between reality and notion. Question: the woodblock prints in Tokyo have been damaged by researchers. Passage: Tokyo's National Data Library is creating detailed digital photographs of 1,236 woodblock prints so that researchers can scrutinize them without handling the originals. Now pause the video and do the question on your own. If you focus particularly on some chunks of information in the sentences, you might discover that scrutinize them without handling the originals contradict have been damaged, and this would be the reason for your false answer. But if you take a close look at the syntactic structure of the passage, you will realize that so that researchers can scrutinize them without handling the originals is a subordinate clause complementing the main clause of the sentence, in the sense that it provides the purpose for the action creating detailed photographs. As a purpose, it belongs to the notional world, not what actually happens in reality. So again, as a purpose, it can't answer the question whether the woodblock prints have been damaged or not. When there's no evidence to prove a statement true or false, the only choice is not given. So how can we differentiate between notion and reality? We often use the past simple tense and present perfect tense to talk about events that actually happen in reality. In other words, these tenses are a testimony to reality. By contrast, notions are usually accompanied by subordinators of purpose, like so that, or conditional conjunctions like if, in case, provided that. They're also introduced by mental state verbs like wish, hope, want, expect. Okay, everything's clear? Yeah! Well, the next issue is overthinking. Question: the study aimed to investigate the mental and behavioral effects of life in prison on young offenders. Passage: they decided to conduct a 2-week study into the psychological impact of prison life on juvenile delinquents. The statement is true, but many students put not given because they overthink the meaning of psychological. They think that the definition of psychological must be more complex than mental and behavioral. Now hang on my words, don't think too hard about small differences in meanings. Mental and behavioral might not be a perfect definition of psychological, but the overall meaning is the same. A simple definition of psychology is the study of the mind and behavior. Finally, we've arrived at error number 7, and that is relying on your life experience. Question: at first, cheaters didn't adapt to life at the breeding center. Passage. They nearly all arrived at the breeding center malnourished, dehydrated, and highly stressed after long voyages stuffed into boxes, crates, and suitcases. Many students automatically decide that if the cheaters came highly stressed and dehydrated after voyages stuffed into suitcases, they must have difficulty adapting to a new place of living. And they answer true. But this conclusion is based on their life experience, not on the information in the passage. So the correct answer is not given, because from the passage we just know that the animals came stressed and dehydrated, but it doesn't mean that it was difficult for them to adapt. Maybe it was, but the text doesn't say anything about what happened to the animals after they arrived. So, not given. Okay, so these are the 7 greatest mistakes that you should avoid in order to boost your score on the true, false, not given questions. And before the lesson finishes, I'd like to bring the following points to your attention. Firstly, make sure you completely and accurately understand what you read. Secondly, when working on wrong answers, identify which type of mistake each falls into. The more you're reminded of an error, the less likely you are to repeat it. And finally, keep a record of your blunders to enrich your experience. That ends the lesson. And now, thanks for watching.
Bye, have a great time.